Before we can begin setting up our DigitalOcean VPS, we're going to have to set up our SSH keys so that we can connect to it securely. Because I definitely don't want to have to set up username and password for us to log in, just because I don't know, it doesn't feel very secure. And setting up the SSH keys is something we need to do anyways, so we might as well start with that right away, and then we can tell DigitalOcean to spin up the entire server with the keys that we provide them at spin up time, at creation time. So the first thing we need to do when choosing our SSH keys is to choose what the algorithm is going to be. And I'm going to be using OpenSSH. And if I take a look here at my terminal, I can do SSH keygen, and then dash help, and we can see here's our choices for -t, and then I have DSA, ECDSA, ED25519, and RSA. Now I can tell you that I used RSA for a very long time, and they seem to be very good for us. But if we want to know if it's really a good idea to continue using them, or which one we really want to use, we need to be able to go and actually look up, like from a trusted site, hey, what's the scoop on the latest algorithms? So for me, that's going to be going to ssh.com, like the actual website for SSH. And here they have in their Academy section an entire paragraph on choosing algorithm and key size. So RSA, they say, well, it's an old algorithm, but it's also practically breakable. So it's something that is no longer recommended unless you have no choice. DSA is an old government crypto key, not recommended. Okay. ECDSA is basically, it's maybe a little bit better than RSA, but it can only go up to 521 bits. And so therefore is, again, not really all that recommended. And then there's this new ED25519. So this is new, but they do warn that support is not universal in all clients. Now for us, we're going to be spinning up a DigitalOcean Ubuntu 20 server, and I can promise you that that's going to be using an OpenSSH version that does support ED25519. So because it does support that, and that's what I'm going to be using this key for, I'm going to be going ahead and using this. Now, I haven't tested it, but I believe that GitHub can also support ED25519, but that's something that I would recommend you test out if you want to use these SSH keys with other services as well. Just be aware that your support may vary. So let's go ahead and now create our key. So I'm going to come back into a terminal here. And as we can see from help, we're going to do SSH-keygen. We're going to do -t, and then the name of the thing, because if I don't do that, it's going to default to RSA. So this is going to be ED. I can actually just tab autocomplete because I'm using Ubuntu 18 here on my local system, and that's giving me all of the, it has the autocomplete commands. It's aware of what I'm trying to do. And that's kind of what I need to do here. I'm going to hit return, and it's going to drop me into interactive mode. So first of all, it's going to say, hey, where do I want to store this? By default, it wants to store it into a folder named .ssh in my home directory. Now, I already have a bunch of these files already because I've created many keys for many different reasons. So I'm going to actually just give it, home brooks.ssh. We're just going to call this ID ED25519 example. Okay, now it's going to say enter a passphrase, empty for no passphrase. Now, if you remember, this key is sort of like a password. It allows us to get into systems and services as if, we had a username password there. Now, that might make it feel like we should always use a passphrase. But there are cases when we're not going to. And later on in the course, we're gonna create a key and show why we would want to use no passphrase. But in this case, we definitely want one. So I'm gonna give it sort of like a temporary one. I'm gonna give it again to make sure we don't lose this. And we know what it is. And it's gonna give us this fingerprint here and this random art. Normally, you do not want anybody to see what this is. This should be private to you. I'm going to be not using this key anywhere. In fact, later on when we, in other videos, when we create our DigitalOcean server and I give it a key, it's actually going to be the public key that's not this one. So I actually feel secure in like actually showing you what this is. Okay, so we're going to cd into our home directory.ssh. And here is this example. So if we want to take, we also notice there's this example.pub. So the .pub is the public file. So whenever I say, hey, we're going to copy the public key in, this is the file to use. Never, ever, ever give your private key out unless you want that thing to act as you. Because once again, it is essentially your password. So it should remain very close to your chest and be yours only. So let's take a look at what this public file looks like, because this is the thing that you're going to share to other servers and services. So I'm just going to go ahead and use bat. Bat is like very similar to cat, but it's a Rust program and it looks a bit nicer. And take you. And this is what that looks like. It's basically very short. And this is all it needs for the other system to verify that my thing, whatever it is, my data is signed with the private key. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this private key looks like here. So this is the one that you should never expose. And this is what that looks like as well. So if you notice yourself copying things, and you see things like private key or like this really long thing here, just be aware that it's not working. Like things are not good. You want to stop immediately and don't hit save and send that out. Now it's pretty easy to regenerate these. Obviously, I'm not going to be using this key at all, so therefore it's not going to cause me any problems that anybody can see these and regenerate them themselves, essentially. Now let's see if I did want to do this, there is if I wanted to load this key up, there is a thing called, and I have I use the GitHub website for this, SSH agent here. So GitHub has great documentation for how to actually load up your SSH keys into an agent that will then remember it. So you only have to put in the passphrase once, and then you can start SSHing in, and it uses that key as sort of like their password. So is this eval SSH agent? I'm going to go ahead and copy that, throw you in here. It then tells me, okay, this is now running. This is the process ID that it's running as. I can now do SSH add. There it is, SSH add. And it's going to ask me, I have to give it what the key is. So we're going to go to the example one. It's going to be this private key. It wants me to put the passphrase in. And I've now added that in. If I did have the public key exported to someplace else, I could now SSH and connect to that without using a username and password. And that's it. I'm going to publicly right now just go ahead and delete these files because they are not trusted. And there we go. They're gone forever and never going to be used. And that's what we're going to need to do. And I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to do it off screen for the next step, which is going to be setting up our DigitalOcean servers and like getting that going and just connecting in. I'll see you in that video. Bye.